So yeah, so talking about orientation, what we've developed here is a little kind of checklist, and hopefully this would, you can change it to whatever you'd like it to be, right? But this is kind of going through. The last time we went through kind of employee guidelines, right? So these are kind of taking those employee guidelines and having the main components up for discussion to make sure that you go through the job description. Again, that came out of your supported lifestyle plan, right? All of this really is out of your supported lifestyle plan at the end of the day. What are your standards of employment conduct? Those were within your guidelines. And then some of these policies here, is smoking allowed? And if so, where? That kind of stuff.
Right.
Understanding that, using your vehicle, how does that work? Is it only when you're in the vehicle, or are they able to borrow it? And what's your policies around that?
Right. Now, so these are just sort of all the different points that you want to include in here, so you actually have a conversation around of it. Now, would you detail all of those sort of things?
Or you go in a lot of detail.
Okay.
And this is just getting to know each other, frankly. I mean, this is or getting them to know you and what's okay to be in your home and not.
Right. Definitely.
Most of these things are really to do with your own personal preference while the employee is working for you. So these are okay things to talk about. And on the right side is a bit of a check off, right? In regards to, did we discuss it, did we not, right?
Yep.
So if it's not checked off, that means you may not have discussed it. So go through, make sure you check it off. Let's take a look at the next slide.
And this particular example is one that is available on the third module of the CSIL.
CSIL workbooks.
CSIL workbooks available on the IFRC website now also.
Yes,
and on our website. So if you Google CSIL workbooks, one of the two will come up.
Absolutely, but definitely utilize these workbooks. They go into much more detail than we can possibly do. Each topic we can spend 2 hours on, Fernando?
Yep.
But we're trying our best to kind of give a little bit of information in each of these topics. So this one here, this little section of the orientation, now lists the things that are important to talk about around your care. Some of it you're going to actually physically show.
Right.
And some of it you're going to talk them through it.
That's good point, yeah. So what are the sort of things that you would show?
So I mean, frankly, if you've hired them and you've made the decision you're going to hire them, we're at that point now. You're showing them this stuff, and the bowel care, right? Let's make sure you show them the way you like it to be done.
Right.
And if you already have a personal attendant that's working for you that is the best one, make sure that's the one person that is showing the new person. Have a little discussion, I think, is a good idea with your trainer. I mean, have a little discussion about what you like and what you don't like, because there may be some things that you want to change. That's part of your, now that you're moving into having a new employee, that you might want to change your routine a little bit. Make sure the trainer knows that in advance, so it's not being spontaneous and say, oh, by the way, I don't do this anymore. I like to do it more like this, right? Because maybe with that care, with that personal assistant, you don't mind doing it the old way, but with this new person, you want to do it another way. Have that discussion, and that usually works out really well. But people remember by doing.
Yep.
And I find, yes, it costs more because you're paying 2 attendants at the same time, Fernando, but at the same time, doing this way and having them see it the next time that they do it, when you're trying to describe it, they've seen it already, and it makes it so much easier. So, let's see, what else do we got here? Sorry, what were we going to say for now?
I was going to say how long, hours wise, days with a typical sort of orientation.
Yeah.
Are we talking hours, or are we talking something that's spread out for a couple of weeks?
So a lot of it depends on what kind of support we're talking about, right? So some of the basic cleaning and things like that, perhaps, it's a quick run through and showing them. Quite often, you can probably do that yourself and showing them what to do.
Right.
The bowel care routine, though, maybe it's a day of showing them how to do it, and the next day the person actually does it, and have your regular one observe them.
Oh, I see.
Right. And if it all feels right and it's all good, and by the way, you should have a discussion with the trainee. Yep. How did it go? Do you feel comfortable? Great, let's carry on. Sometimes they do have to come back a third time with the trainee person. helping you out. So, usually plan for 2 days of training on the more complex part of the care, especially the part that you just may not feel as comfortable to describe, that more of the physical hands-on need to be there, so that when somebody's poking the wrong spot, the person can actually show them, no, do it more like this, you know? Don't mean to be so,
that's true.
yeah, but that's,
but good point about that, but you have to be honest about it all, right?
exactly. And then, I mean, if it's feeding and stuff, because I need help to be fed,
Yes.
I actually like them to see how it's done, right? Because, we'd be sitting and having a discussion. Because for me, I go out for meetings a lot and eat, right?
And you're out a lot.
And I am out a lot, yeah. So it's really important for someone to be able to know how to, when I look at them, give me a bite of the food,
Yes.
and stuff. And by actually having a conversation and having my actual person who's experienced at it doing it, they kind of get the mode, and it makes it easier.
Yeah. And one of the other things that I thought also is really important about orientation. It's not just about the training for the the personal aspects. It's also about all the other bits and pieces that are important, because one of the things that people don't like to talk about, but they should, is anything to do with money, right? It's one of those sort of areas that people shy away from, but you have to be honest and talk about at the very beginning. Here we have a couple of simple things. Identify when it is that you're going to be paid, so they know. So you're not a person that's sitting in limbo after a couple of months. Is it regular? We're going to be paid on the 15th, the 30th, or whatever.
Are you paid twice a month, or every second week, kind of thing? And this area though, there's some people that will ask you these kinds of questions in an interview, believe it or not.
It's true,
That means, and the fact that they're asking these kinds of questions in the interview means that this is really important to give this information early. Get the information. Don't hide this information. It needs to be right out there right away. Pretty much the first shift or during that training, I kind of go through the nuts and bolts of that kind of stuff, so that gets it out of the way.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. And part of it is, because we re-talk about how much the pay is again and remind them of it. And you might as well find out that they're upset about the pay right off the bat, and not go through all the training and stuff to find out they really didn't want to do that kind of shift after all. So have this kind of discussion early. Make sure we're all clear, because usually when you're calling them up to give them the news, they're excited, they got hired, da-da-da. It's when they start working and they kind of go, oh, what did I actually sign up for, right? And so get that information to them quick. A couple other quick points here. Make sure you're really clear about your house key policy.
Oh yes,
it's on the list here, and I just wanted to say what is it? For example, my general policy is that if you have a key and you're scheduled to come in, up to 10 or 15 minutes early, no problem. Just come on up. You don't have to buzz in. You don't have to knock on the door.
Right.
Pretty much, I'm expecting you.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But if you're coming 30 minutes earlier or whatever, or not coming on a day that you're scheduled, I don't actually expect them to use their key, unless we've arranged it. So if they're coming out of the blue, just a buzz like anybody else, right? Kind of thing. So be really clear about that kind of stuff, so that there's no feeling of someone taking advantage of the keys and things like that, or getting you in a situation where you just don't want them to be there, right?
No, great points. Yeah, one of those things that I hadn't really thought, because you want to make it easier for people to get in and so obviously the whole key issue. What communication systems what's that about?
The communication system. When is a good time to talk?
Gotcha. Right.
What is our, open communication, for example? Let's talk about open communication. Is it okay to bring up work issues? When is a good time? I know we discussed that a little bit more later in this session, but that communication is the key to everything. If you guys do not know how to communicate with one another, little things become huge.
Yep.
Signing at the bottom, real key here. Fernando and I were talking about it earlier, and get them to sign it. You sign it. It just reminds you that you've dealt with it, so that down the road, nobody can say, hey, you never told me. Well, we both signed off saying that I did tell you. So.
And at the very end, we talk about documents that you should be keeping, and
yes.
And that's the importance that not only is it important to keep things, but it's also important to verify that someone has actually gone through a process like an orientation by having them sign it. You go through all this work and they don't sign it, and then at the end they might say that, no, we actually didn't do it, and it's your word against theirs. Not that it's common, but you just want to avoid any of those sort of things because you are an employer.
Fernando, I've had relationships with attendants for years and years, and everything goes perfectly fine. And there's, times where you've had, things go fine for 4 or 5 years, and
right.
it's a bump in the relationship,
yes.
and sometimes those relationships do end. And you need to protect yourself and make sure that you have all the documentation, and this is one of them.
No, great point. Protecting yourself always.
Always.